What's going on, guys? My name is Austin. This is the Bodies in Business podcast. And this episode is part of the Positive Influencer series, where I talk about influencers that are putting a positive message out there and then also have had a really positive impact on my life and my journey through health and wellness and also business. So today's person is Gary Vee, also known as Gary Vaynerchuk. And it's exciting to talk about Gary because I feel like I've listened to him for the past 10 years, but over the past probably 6 to 7 years, I've really started listening to a lot of his stuff on social media, YouTube, all these other things, because he, to be honest, is one of the most exciting entrepreneurs out there. And I think he's been through so much and there's a lot to learn from him. So to just dive right into it, if you are an entrepreneur and you are feeling a little down, go watch a Gary Vee video. Okay. That's the first thing. Is entrepreneur journey can be super frustrating and very tough, and you can get into the depths of despair. But Gary Vee is a guy that if you need some good advice or somebody to kind of pump you up, Gary Vee is the guy to do it. So go put on a Gary Vee video somewhere and you'll get super hyped. And I think that's where honestly I was, it was like 2015, 2016 when I first heard of Gary Vee, because I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember which podcast it was, but they were interviewing Gary Vee, and he said a line in there that really resonated with me. The guy said, why do you think you're going to be successful? Why do you think your company's going to do well? And he said, because I outwork everyone. Okay. I just work harder than everyone. And that really got me pumped, because I felt like at that time in my life, it was 2015, 2016, I was a super hard worker in my endeavors, and I was trying to be the best rugby player I could be, but also, do a lot of other things. And so I was like, man, that's what I love to hear. I love to hear a guy say, I'm going to be the hardest worker in the room, and that's why I'm going to win. So that first drew me towards Gary Vee. And then to learn more about his journey, the first thing he did was in his 20s and early 30s, he took his family's liquor store that was run by his dad, and he took it from $3 million a year of annual revenue to $60 million of revenue, annual revenue. And it was really cool to hear that, because I think I only did 1 year of that. I went back to my hometown to help out my dad for a year for football. And the reason why I bring that up is because Gary always says it's probably going to be the most important and impactful thing he's ever done in his life, because he got to help his dad build his business to something that was amazing and brought in tons of money and gave them probably a lot of financial freedom. And so he was able to do this because he started a thing called Wine Library, and he used YouTube and e-commerce when it was just starting out to really grow the company. And so that was his first, I think, dipped his toes into the entrepreneurship game, was taking something like a liquor store and using new technologies to grow it and to actually do things outside of just selling liquor and wine in the store. So that's the first two things: is he brings the energy, and he's a super hard worker. Next, he's grateful. And a lot of the interviews that I've heard him talk about is he's so grateful for his parents and the way that they raised him. And he tells stories of how his mom is the best mom in the world. And I think that really resonates with me, because I think I had very loving parents, and parents that would do anything for me to succeed. My dad would take me to wrestling tournaments on the weekends, and my mom would always take me to practices and she would always tell me that I could be anything that I wanted to be. And she was like, you can be the president if you want. And so I think she was always a super positive person, and that helped me dream big. So Gary's family, I think really his parents support him, and also he said that his mom was the best mom in the world. So it's kind of cool to hear him that really love his parents. Other thing that he's grateful for is that he was an immigrant from Belarus, which was part of the Soviet Union. And he said that his parents used to have to wait 8 or 9 hours in line for bread when they lived in the Soviet Union. And they used to tell them the story, because we take a lot of things for granted here in the US. And he also said that they were on an 11.5-year waiting list to get a phone while they were there. And so he realizes how lucky he is to be an American and live in America. And I think that's something that we lose sight of sometimes, is we tend to say oh, it sucks here, or I wish I was somewhere else. And man, do we have it good here a lot of the time, even though there are bad things happening in the US. And, in your hometown, in your family, in your house, and all these things will say, it could always be worse. I'm sure it can always be better, but it always could be worse. And I think he's a super grateful person. That's why I enjoy listening to him. One of his lines that he says is, people who are well parented and have grit and patience, don't care what other people think, and are willing to put their head down, have a huge advantage and will become extraordinary. And it's fun to hear that, because you're like, man, okay, I feel like I embody some of those attributes. If I just put my head down and keep working and am not, fed through a silver spoon, I'm going to be able to win in the end and be extraordinary. So it's kind of cool to hear him say stuff like that. The next thing, and there's a whole laundry list of things here that I'll probably end up going through, I appreciate you guys listening to this, but because I want you to go listen to Gary's stuff. I think he has a lot to offer when it comes to just lived experiences. And it's always helpful to hear people that have gone through tough times talk about their journey. And so you don't want to hear like the person that had everything work out for them perfectly and then just say, oh man, everything's not going to be perfect for me, so I'm not going to be able to do it. You want to hear people that kind of went through the grind. One other thing that he talks about in some of his interviews is the fact that our political landscape is so polarized. And he recognizes this and he says, guys, it's not red or blue, it's purple. And meaning that we're not against each other. It's not you're on team red, you're on team blue. We should be more on team purple, where it's like, hey, we're all together here. Let's try to figure this stuff out. It's not as extreme on one side as the other person says, and it's not, as bad as the other person says about them. We need to be more aligned on the things that are making this country great. And I think it's fun to hear him say that, because someone that has a big enough reach like him, hearing somebody say that, hey, it's not red, it's not blue, it's purple, it resonates, I feel like, with a lot of people. He sees trends. This is one of the big things. He sees trends early. He saw that Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok were going to be huge. And early on Twitter's and Facebook's journey, he invested $280,000 into both of those companies. Well, together, he invested $280,000 into both those companies. And he said that investment has paid back probably millions of dollars, if not, millions of dollars. And it's fun to hear him talk about things that are going to be big in the future, because you're like, okay, he picked a lot of winners and we can go over that in the end, but he sees trends early and he tells people about those trends. He's a grinder. He works 12 to 14-hour days, even though he's 50 years old, and he's a multi-millionaire. He's humble. He goes to garage sales still, and there's videos of him going to garage sales and like haggling with people to buy like a coffee mug or a box of coffee mugs, or even like comic books or something like that. And it's cool to see. You don't know if he's like doing it for video or for content, but it seems like he really loves it, because he always talks about going, like, if you're just now starting out, start at the lowest level possible, go to a garage sale, get these things, flip it, and make more money. Now, I will say he kind of makes it sound easier than it probably is, but I find it so cool to see him or hear him talk about that stuff and trying to help the lowest person on the totem pole so that they get their entrepreneurship journey going. I think he's a visionary. He said, one of his quotes is, I knew I wanted to build the greatest marketing Death Star of all time. And so he's created VeeFriends, he's got VaynerMedia, he's called a bunch of things like that have come true. So I think he's a big visionary, and I like to see that, because he says he wants to buy the Jets one day, which is going to cost billions of dollars. And he says he doesn't know how he's going to get it done, but he's going to find a way, and he's going to own the Jets one day, which is kind of cool to hear. He's understanding. I think, and opinions that he has, if somebody says something, like he had an interview with Tom Papa, and Tom Papa said, my daughters, give me crap about, being on my phone or doing something that's killing the environment. He was like, kids are going to be kids, and he was like saying, like, in order to discipline those kids, I got to move this, sorry, because I don't want this in my face. I don't want the light. Anyway, you got to be able to discipline your kids, but also it's hard to discipline your kids. So I think he's an understanding person. Like, he tries to understand people on like the lowest level possible, so that he can understand how to build the Death Star for marketing, right? He helps everyone. He live streams content in his office of working with like the top influencers in the world. And then he will live stream him doing a video one-on-one with some guy from Iowa that lives in the middle of nowhere and try to help them with their business. So I think that's really cool that he can try to help somebody that is at the top of their game, that's making millions, if not billions of dollars, and then go down the lowest level possible and try to help the average Joe in their endeavor. He puts people in their place. His favorite term when he's talking bad about somebody now is he's like, look, dick face. And I think it's funny. I think it sounds so funny when he calls somebody a dick face, but because he doesn't want people talking bad about others. He's like, there's no reason you should put other people down. You should only care about yourself or bring people up. If you're putting other people down, that means there's something going on with you, like that's probably not the greatest. Like there's something that's bothering you that's causing you to be mean to somebody else. And he's like, you should feel bad for that person. You should feel bad for the person that's putting that hate out in the world, which is interesting. And he likes to put people in their place. He's positive about the future. So he tells a little line in this story when he's on the stage with somebody. He's like, to be positive about the future, because everybody's sometimes like all doom and gloom about certain things. They're like, AI is going to take all our jobs, or like, basically all workers are going to go out of business, all these other things. And he says this quote, he's like, when the tractor was invented, 85% of people worked on farms, and we thought that was a bad back then. But eventually it will be good. I don't see everyone crying for the yellow pages and the Google when they came out and wiped out everyone. I don't see people crying for taxi cabs when Uber came along and wiped them out. So what he's saying is a lot of times people get so caught up around like the bad things about what AI is going to bring, about what the internet was going to bring, about what typewriters going to bring. And they don't realize that it's all a net positive if you get on the trend and use it in a positive way and try to figure it out. Next thing is he's self-reliant, but he knows he can't win alone. Okay. He really talks about how relationships are super important, but he also says that you need to stop crying and everything is not everybody else's fault. You need to be able to point the finger at yourself or point your thumbs at yourself and say, this is on me and I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it happen. And he also realizes that he has to have other people in his life that are willing to help him with his goals to make the best possible company he can and make the most impact, the most positive impact. I think one fun thing too is that he says stuff people need to hear. Okay. And this is, I'm going to give you a few of them. He says, he said he was in the airport talking to a dad, and the dad was like concerned about TikTok. He says, he told the dad, I talk about TikTok as a marketing tool to grow your business. If you think TikTok is bad for your daughter, delete it. We have become way too many finger pointers instead of thumbs. So like that was big because I think the context really matters of what he's saying. Like everything he says, it doesn't always make sense. Like I will say like, he says stuff like I don't listen to people. I listen to myself. And it's just like you probably do listen to a lot of people, but you're saying that because you want people to really listen to what they enjoy and stuff. But in this circumstance, he said to a guy who's like listening to his content and saying like TikTok is great. You as a business should be using TikTok. If you think in another circumstance where your daughter is having a bad experience with TikTok, be a parent and you can take it away from them. But he's saying like, hey, good things can be used in a positive way or negative way depending on the circumstance, right? Here's another line. We have gotten really good at pointing the fingers at everyone else. We all grew up with some shit, and your shit probably feels bigger because it's yours. When it's all your fault, when is it all your fault? And they talk about with Tom Papa, like he thinks it's like when you turn 18, maybe after college, like you need to start taking accountability for who you are as a person. Because if you keep playing the blame game, then you're always going to point the finger at somebody else saying like, that's the reason why I didn't succeed, or that's the reason why I'm so effed up and stuff like that. So he's saying like, we need to be able to point the thumbs at us. I really like this quote. He said, it's hard to be hungry when you're always fed. Nowadays, a lot of times we take the fact that like, if we don't have things, we're in a worse position. And if not being like not starving, and I don't think he's not saying you should starve yourself, but he is saying that in order to be hungry, analogy of like wanting to do more and wanting more for your life, you can't be always fed. You can't always be pampered. You can't always be taken care of. You can't always be coddled. And that's where he's like, kids these days, a lot of them are coddled by their parents and aren't given the opportunity to be hungry and to be not taken care of. So he's saying that kids that don't have as much are really, really hungry. and are going to go get what they don't have. Whereas kids that have everything don't feel as obligated to go get stuff because they have everything. Okay. It's not a bad or good thing. He's just making a point. He also says, this is, stuff people need to hear. If you are lucky enough to be listening to this podcast on an $800 phone, you've got it pretty damn good, which I think a lot of times this goes back to, we all have it pretty good. We all have it better than someone else, and we all have it better than we could have it in other circumstances. So be thankful for what you have. The last couple here, it's and not or. A lot of times people are ones or zeros. It's either you do this or do this, or do this or do this. Whereas a lot of times it can be, hey, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and see if they work together. Everything's not so black and white. And that's especially in business. For me and for Flybodies, I've tried a bunch of things. It's like, are you an in-person company or are you a virtual company? It's like, well, we're a little bit of both. And the reason why I want to be a little bit of both is because I think both have their advantages. Being a virtual company allows you to scale. Being in person allows you to create that connectivity with your customer. So you can be, doesn't always have to be or, it can be and. He preaches to find something you love to do. And this can be, a double-edged sword where some people say, hey, just do work, do something and go work for your dad, go work for your mom, go work for somebody, and don't do what you love to begin with because you don't know what you love. Like, yeah, you may love something really, really, you may love something a lot when you're 12, 13, 14, but that could change 10 years and that's okay. He's saying that over the long term, to find things you really love, because that's going to make you more motivated to want to do those things day in and day out and to grow your company, okay? Or grow or do really well in your job, right? And the last thing is he's an entrepreneur. I think, I've seen so many videos of him talking about entrepreneurship and grinding when times are tough, starting his media business with like no money and having to share office space with people. And then he grew his dad's business from 3 million to 60 million. So many good things he's done. He's not a perfect person by any means, but I'm going to read this off really quick and finish with this. Here we go. So who is Gary Vee? Quick snapshot. Gary Vee rose to prominence in the mid-2000s by growing his family's wine business through early internal marketing. His no-nonsense style obsession with long-term thinking and ability to spot cultural trends early helped him become a go-to authority on branding, content, and entrepreneurship. How much he's worth? Around 200 to 250 million. His wealth comes from private companies, early stage investments, IP, media, and brand equity rather than a single exit. Businesses he's built: Wine Library, VaynerMedia, VaynerX, eFriends, and Angel Investing. Why people pay attention to him? Attention is the asset. He wrote a book called, I'm blanking, Attention is the Asset, maybe? I don't think that's it. But anyways, he is all about long-term branding and beat short-term hacks, and document is better than creating. Like, he's saying, like, document the journey. And that's honestly part of why I built FlyFit the way I've built it, is because I'm just like, it's all about the journey. And he says that, and I'm just like, that's so true. It's all about the journey. And obviously the reward at the end of the journey is awesome, but we need to enjoy the journey. And that goes back to like dopamine and motivation, is if you enjoy the journey, you're going to want to keep going. Okay. Patience, volume, self-awareness equals leverage. He is all about patience and just keep grinding, guys. So that's it. I really enjoy the content Gary Vee puts out. I really appreciate him just being positive in this world where he could totally like try to trash people and say bad things about people, but he tries to stay positive and focus on him and make his company and his life better. So that's it. Go listen to some Gary Vee stuff. I'll put some of his videos in the notes, and have fun. Get after it.